Yo, welcome to the Left Fresh Podcast. Happy Wednesday, happy Hump Day to all. Got the middle of the week sports analysis for you, everyone. Covering the NBA, NFL, NCAA. All the sports we can gather here on the Left Fresh Podcast. Thank you all for jumping on. Thank you all for the subscription. Those who have subscribed, those who haven't, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Hit the like, comment, engage, share, tell a friend, tell a friend. Thank you all for jumping on again. Let's get right back. Let's get right into it, man. NFL's in full swing. Matter of fact, it's the first episode of March, I want to say as well. I'm saying a great first 2 months. Been going pretty well. Like I said, March, nice busy month for sports. Got a lot of activity going on as far as NFL offseason, regarding getting ready for the draft in April. Had the combine. Um, Off-season transactions as far as signings and restructurings and franchise taggings in the NFL. So a lot of big news going around the league even during the start the off-season off. Also got the NBA coming up as well. Got where we're at in the league as far as the standings, as far as the statistical leaders. Just discussion around the NBA as we get towards the playoffs and wrapping up the regular season. And then we're going into the NCAA as far as getting ready for March Madness, wrapping up the conference championship chases and big games, getting ready for March and everything, getting the seating and the brackets ready and everything like that. It's a real exciting time in March. So I'm definitely excited to talk sports and happy for everyone who's willing to jump on and talk with me. So yeah, thanks a lot for everyone. Let's get right into it, man. Let's not waste any time. We'll start with the NFL. Yeah, NFL. Real started to pick up the pace a little bit as far as the offseason goes. We had the NFL Combine this past weekend. Still got a lot of interviews and um, players doing astronomical 40 times and different drills. A lot of freak athletes in this draft. Um, like I said before, it's not really the strongest quarterback class, and that's kind of what a lot of teams are rushing for right now. But other than Fernando Mendoza, the Heisman winning quarterback for Indiana, um, other than Ty Simpson, the quarterback for Alabama, there's really no other quarterbacks projected to go as high as the first round. So teams that are in the dire needs of getting a quarterback, they're not getting their needs met in the draft, which pretty much leaves them stuck going through the quarterback carousel of teams that have pretty much given up on quarterbacks or moved on from quarterbacks. And they're just trying to see which story can be a reclamation project, what can be a revival story, what can be the next Sam Darnold. The Seattle, took a quarterback that many teams wrote off and built a team around, a great defense, added a great running game and weapons around, and Sam Darnold was able to close the deal. So, when you got a NFL where elite quarterbacks are not even really competing. You had elite quarterbacks like Mahomes and Joe Burrow get hurt. You had Lamar Jackson on a struggling Ravens team that didn't even make the playoffs. Josh Allen, made the playoffs, but their run was stopped short. And so I mean, even being having an elite quarterback, it's still tough to win in this league. So you got teams now. It's like, well, we may not have a Josh Allen, we may not have a Joe Burrow, but we're showing that we can stack the right roster around. And some of these teams are a quarterback away, and the QB shuffle, the QB carousel, if you may, um, really gives a chance to shake things up and see if one of those teams can actually think about some of these quarterbacks who have big contracts and the team in the organization was unable to put a viable roster around them because of their contracts, because maybe they were maybe good or starting level but not quite elite level but got paid like an elite. There's going to be a couple of releases, and quarterbacks that are once a too much of a contract to take on are going to be under a manageable deal. So under a manageable deal, you have a quarterback that just pretty much has to be a viable starter and manage games and not try to be the savior of a franchise anymore as teams move on from them from being. So now you got teams now who need a quarterback desperately and just need just a little bit of improvement in quarterback play to be a contender. One of the biggest news was the Arizona Cardinals intend on releasing Kyler Murray. And one thing I said about Kyler Murray was he was a quarterback that, drafted very highly, number one pick, Heisman winner. Um, he was brought to the Arizona Cardinals to be that franchise quarterback, that guy. Um, he had a few good seasons as far as productivity, but not stellar. Um, and after a couple of other seasons after that, Kyler it kind of tapered off for him. Failed to stay healthy. Not you know Arizona wanted to still extend his contract, even though he had those injuries and everything of that nature, and the Cardinals are still not competitive in that NFC West division. But the Cardinals kind of stuck beside him, paid him. Um, Kind of had reported issues of him not really being the most focused or the most disciplined leader. A lot of different reports saying he was pretty distracted. Um, the Cardinals look like they're just kind of moving on from him, and just going into kind of continuing to rebuild because I mean even with Kyler Murray, they weren't very competitive. Um, Now that they moved on from him, I see them probably going into the quarterback carousel, just looking for a cheaper option. A lot of these is more so about the quarterback underperforming to the standards of the contract that they were paid. He's kind of the same story as not official that Tua is going to be gone, but I mean there's reports that Tua is most likely going to be released as well, or the Dolphins are going to try to do something with his contract as well. Um, and possible destinations for Kyler Murray have been ranging from teams like Minnesota, the Jets, the Falcons, the Dolphins, which lets me know they're moving on from Tua. If the Dolphins are a reported destination for Kyler Murray, that means Tua Tagovailoa is going to be joining the quarterback carousel as well. So yeah, Kyler Murray, I can see him being on the move as well. Like I said, he's had a number of different reported destinations that would willingly take him because, like I said, there's teams out here that can use a quarterback. Like I said, Minnesota Vikings. They moved on from Sam Darnold. A lot of the media and everybody else in the football community and the football fan community is pretty much kicking them for letting Sam Darnold walk and winning the Super Bowl. So they definitely want to rebound with some quarterback play after JJ McCarthy kind of put them in a show and prove situation, or just have Kyler Murray just ultimately take the job altogether. You also have the New York Jets, who are also looking for a quarterback. They got the number 2 pick in this draft, and no quarterback is going to be available for them. So, the Jets are probably just going to be trying to rebuild that roster. Um, they got a ways to go. I mean, I think if you're going to get Kyler Murray, you probably need to trade down, probably get some more depth, get some more, probably get some more picks because it's going to take a lot to rebuild that Jets roster. Um, but yeah, Kyler Murray's another need there. Like I said, Miami is also uh, compilation of kind of Minnesota and New York situations as well. They're trying to move over from that dead cap room from Tua's contract, so it's going to be tough for him to end up in Miami. But yeah, the Atlanta Falcons, a team that's been a quarterback away for the last couple of seasons. They try to address it with Michael Penix. They try to address it with Kirk Cousins, but realistically, now that Kirk Cousins is most likely they're going to move on from Kirk Cousins as well, and Michael Penix still recovering from injury. Most likely, he's not going to be back at the start of the season. So the Falcons kind of in a position where if you can get a Kyler Murray under a nice cheaper deal with the roster, you just franchise tag Kyle Pitts, still bringing back Drake London, you got Bijan, you got a good defense to bring it back. So I mean, the Falcons is kind of an ideal destination as far as a team that's further along towards winning than a lot of the other quarterback vacancies. Um, New coach Stefanski got an offense that could possibly fit Murray's skill set. Um, and then there's another team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Aaron Rodgers has not decided whether he's going to return to the Steelers, and that can leave them in a desperate need for a QB. And Kyler Murray, he's right now an attractive name in the offseason. I mean, like I said, there's not elites flying around the league right now available. There's nothing in the draft. So you're kind of looking at, what team is first, is a quarterback away. And, Pittsburgh's another team that's been a quarterback away. Yep, that's a valid case, organized. Um, he's pretty small. That's kind of one of the indictments on him. He's only 5'10". Uh, the trending pattern of the NFL, over the last couple of years, we've had shorter quarterbacks that teams have tried to build around, and lately it's kind of looking like it's a little bit of a struggle for the smaller quarterbacks. Like I said, Tua's on his way, out. Kyler Murray, is out. Um, Bryce Young made it to the playoffs with the Panthers, but I mean, we don't know if the Panthers are pretty much sold on extending him or how much of an extension to give him. He's had his inconsistencies throughout the season as well. Um, the Russell Wilson trend is kind of fading away now. Teams are kind of looking for big quarterbacks again. One of the sells on Fernando Mendoza, even though a lot of a lot of pundits are not really buying the hype, is that he was 6'5". A lot of the better quarterbacks in football are about 6'3", 6'4", 6'5". You know, Seeing over the line is important. Um, you want quarterbacks that are a little more durable. So I mean, definitely, size is an advantage. Size can be a disadvantage as well. One of the things about Kyler Murray, he got around that size because of his athleticism. He was really fast. He was really quick. I think he kind of lost a little bit of that burst from the ACL tear that he had, and I think that's kind of limited him, and it's kind of restricted him to a pocket passer, kind of. And he's more of an improviser type of quarterback. He's kind of a quarterback that throws on the improv. So yeah, it's going to be, but at the same time, he's got a big arm. He's got a rocket for an arm. He's still pretty elusive. Um, Backup situations aren't that great either. San Francisco got two quarterbacks, and Mac Jones is a backup quarterback that everybody would love to have starting, but San Francisco's not letting them go. It doesn't seem like they want the house for him, and I don't think a lot of teams are really going to make a big trade for Mac Jones. But at the same time, um, San Francisco should be listening to some offers. I mean, your team that's trying to get back in it. Yeah, I don't like that they had to force him to watch film. The QB, you should be the first one watching film. Yeah, that's kind of the intangibles of being a great quarterback. Um, that's kind of what made that kind of played a big part. Like I said, his durability and focus and everything like that. Those are the intangibles that he has the skill. He had the skill set. I mean, he has the arm, still has an arm. Like I said, he's not as elusive as he once was at the ACL. Maybe he's still kind of recovering from the ACL tear. He's not really, the same QB that was able to. He doesn't seem to have the same escapability that he once had. Um, but yeah, he's had a lot of reports coming out about him staying focused and making sure he's watching film and preparation and everything. And now at this point, he's not going anywhere expected to be a franchise savior. He's just pretty much going somewhere to, you know, hopefully get a team over the top and not necessarily have to be the guy that saves the games, but most likely just doesn't lose the games. Like I said, I think the Falcons are a great destination for him. If the Falcons are kind of stuck at quarterback, they can probably pick him up because you know BJ Robinson's already there as an elite weapon. He doesn't have to, Kyler wouldn't have to do too much. Like I said, just not lose the game. Um, but team like the Jets, they're not a new quarterback away. Like I said, I think the Jets should obviously trade down. They can pick up a great player high up in the pick in the draft. They're gonna have to nail the rest of those picks because I mean they're just devoid roster. They traded away their best players, their best defensive players last season, and they didn't record an interception last season either. So I don't know really what the Jets can do for any quarterback that they sign. They probably just pick up a bridge quarterback and just keep it moving. But yeah, I mean the Jets are kind of like undesirable at this point. I believe some quarterbacks are going back to school just so they wouldn't get drafted by the Jets. So I mean it's just you know that's probably an undesirable location. But I can see as far as Kyler Murray going, I can see him going to a team like either the Falcons or the Minnesota Vikings. Team where they already got a weapon in place, they already got a defense, and Kyler Murray can just go in there and be a viable starting quarterback. But yeah, there's other quarterbacks out there, like I said, Tua Tagovailoa, um, Geno Smith, Justin Fields. Yeah, teams are really scraping the plate to try to get a quarterback. Like I said, there's very slim pickings, and some teams have good teams or good squads. They're just kind of trying to get that quarterback play around, or just trying to make tweaks to that roster to get better. Some teams have quarterbacks, some teams have young quarterbacks. There's also not too many teams that really need quarterbacks, but the ones that don't have quarterbacks are kind of just scraping the pot, trying to get something, trying to get something in before the season starts, and then eventually they just have to take whatever starter they can get. But yeah, it's pretty looking rough, pretty slim pickings for the quarterback position. But there was a trade also today as well. Kansas City Chiefs traded their star cornerback Trent McDuffie to the St. Louis Rams for a slew of draft picks. I believe it was a second, a fourth, and I believe a third as well. But yeah, that was a big move by the Rams, a team that has no qualms about trading draft picks to good players. Their window is still open, so they're obviously making tweaks to get better. Um, After making it to the NFC Championship game, um, I don't think they're just trying to. They're playing for next year. Like it's not about 2 3 years down the line for them. Matt Stafford has got a closing window. Defense is getting better. Parts they have, Devontae Adams is probably moving on from him already. So yeah, that window is pretty much closing. So that trade was kind of just to keep their window open. For Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes is probably not going to be ready by the season opener. I expect Kansas City to still kind of struggle. So, you know, you might as well trade a player that you kind of can get assets for. And Kansas City, for the first time in a while, is high up in the NFL draft, picking high in the draft. So, they got a chance to make some retools. Probably this season is another lost season, but next for just get better for the next season. Where this draft they can hit on picks. They probably do bad this year. Next season they come back and hit on picks, and Patrick Mahomes come back fully healed and have a young roster, have some younger parts around him in place. But yeah, this is kind of like almost a semi rebuild for Kansas City. So they got a chance to retool around Patrick Mahomes. I think it was a pretty even trade on both. I think both teams got what they wanted in this. Like I said, the Rams have no problem making a win now trade. So when they traded for Matt Stafford, they'll make a move for any key player, especially a veteran player that can get them over the top. So yeah, I mean, that was a pretty big trade right there. Um, you also might have heard that New England Patriots have let go of Stephon Diggs. They are saving around 18 million in cap space by letting them go. So yeah, a lot of salary, a lot of salary cutting made, a lot of salary cuts made, just to get under the a lot of cuts being made to get under the salary. So yeah, those are key players right there. Stephon Diggs, you know, had a pretty good run. Veteran receiver at this point. He's had some injuries. I kind of figured that the Patriots wouldn't keep him even at the start of the season. I felt like he was just a good veteran receiver pickup to put around a young quarterback. They ended up going all the way to the Super Bowl, but um, now going into the off season, New England has a chance to get younger receivers at his position, and like I said, Stephon Diggs is a veteran. Um, may get picked up by another team for a cheaper salary, but yeah, the Patriots definitely wanted to make this move for financial reasons. Wanted to make this move for financial reasons. So, best of luck to Stephon Diggs. The Patriots keep it moving, trying to rebuild on this new roster around Vrabel and Drake May. But yeah, it's gonna be a couple more. Like I said, a couple more veterans going to be cut. Um, Especially around draft time because a lot of teams are going to be looking at those positions to look for replacements, younger replacements, cheaper replacements. And got to see a good bit of them this weekend at the NFL Draft Combine. I mean, seen some impressive young boys out there running 4.4s, 4.3s, record times. I believe this is one of the fastest 40-time NFL combines, ever in a while. But you know, it normally it doesn't always translate to NFL talent or NFL greatness, anything like that. I mean, not always, but I mean, it's always entertaining to see some of these young guys come out there willing to show off their abilities and work their way up the draft order and everything like that, and try to make their team, try to make a team, really impress new teams, their prospective teams. But yeah, the offensive linemen were really athletic. Yeah, some great defensive linemen that was running some 4.4s and you know really real freak athletic specimens out there. We had receivers that was breaking records and everything as well. Um, the interviews were pretty interesting as well. I think some of these um, players handled themselves well despite the intense scrutiny of bad enough the media, but now you got social media, and social media is like real critical. Some I think Kai Lemon was getting real nitpicked about his speech patterns and everything like that. And I believe another receiver spoke up and said, "Listen, yeah, we got speech impediments. And some of us, man, it just is what it is." And it's like, some of these guys are great athletes. And some of that stuff, and they're very young too. So you gotta give them a chance to, refine themselves and work on their interviewing skills and everything like that. You really just want to see what type of character they have. If they're hardworking and, you know, willing and coachable and willing to work within the system and everything of that nature. So all that other stuff comes kind of secondary. So yeah, salute to these young players this weekend. A lot of athleticism on display. I'll show you the NFL mock draft that Charles Davis of ESPN had gave us. It's pretty consistent with the ones that, yeah, I don't care how a receiver talks. Is he fast? Yeah, at the end of the day, 4-2 is a 4-2. You know what I mean? Like, they got all type of workshops for speech impediments and everything. So, you know, hopefully some of these new salaries could help with that. And it doesn't really matter if we'll see them on the field. They're gonna have a helmet on running anyway. Um, NFL mock draft. Charles Davis made his 2.0. His projection of top 10 picks. He had Fernando Mendoza at number one, which is pretty much almost consensus. The Raiders. Um, Couple of suggestions that they trade down, but I don't see them necessarily doing such. I feel like they're probably just going to start over and work the most important position. They got Ashton Jeanty, they got Brock Bowers. Probably going to trade Max Crosby, but the Raiders have been a rebuild for a while. Um, a lot. I've heard a couple people speak out, kind of give a little kickback to Fernando Mendoza that he doesn't possess a lot of the ideal quarterback abilities or skills. Does he make those type of NFL throws? Does he, you know? But then there's also the positive of his intangibles that he's kind of a high character, high morale. If you've seen his interviews, he's really just really energetic and really excited about football and everything. Really a lot of love for the game. Um, he has, like I said, he meets the intangibles. Um, I feel like there's people who feel they're overdraft, they're reaching really high for him because he may not have the ideal arm or the ideal arm talent, but he has the intangibles that you want in a quarterback. And I mean, typically, I guess most people see those type of quarterbacks as a third rounder, a quarterback that kind of makes up for his lack of ability with these intangibles, his heart, and great ability to make the progressions and reads and everything of that nature. So, QB is really an intangible type of position. In all fairness, but usually quarterbacks that are drafted really high usually have some kind of unicorn like ability, whether a unicorn type of arm, a freak specimen of an athlete, you know, whatever the case may be, is usually something above all that kind of puts them this high up. But a lot of people are really high on his character, and I mean, I am too. I mean, he's a great kid. He's really a solid. Like I said, he provides all the intangibles. It's really the abilities that make you know people questionable or skeptical of him. But I mean, he's the only quarterback projected that high, and I mean, he's looking like the Raiders are probably going to take him number one. Um, like I said, everyone else can use a quarterback. A lot of teams can use a quarterback, but there's just not that many available. There's other positions that are available, including the edge position, which is probably is as important as almost any position out there besides quarterback these days, especially an elite edge rusher. Really hard to find an elite edge rusher. Defense is kind of caught up to the quarterback play in the NFL too. Like I said, even the elite quarterbacks, numbers are down as far as passing. As far as offensive numbers and everything. I mean, that's why teams are going back to the running game again because defenses are a little more sophisticated. They're playing a little more two high safeties, and really just daring teams to beat them with the run and kind of just not letting quarterback play defeat them. A lot of teams are not really, giving up that quarterback play, and most importantly, is just getting that pressure on that quarterback. And this draft right here, you can see in the top 10, you got three projected high going edge rushers. David Bailey from Texas Tech. His stock has really rose. He's a freak of nature athletically, great great motor, high motor, great eye for the ball, so he just makes big plays, great edge, and then you got Arvell Reese at number projected to go number 4 from Ohio State. Robert Saleh, new head coach, former Jets head coach and former San Francisco 49ers defensive coordinator, is now the head coach of Tennessee. So I'm pretty sure he's looking at Arvell Reese to add to his defensive line and get pressure on the QB as well. Like I said, David Bailey, he got a real good scope as far as eyeing the quarterback, getting to the quarterback, getting to the blowing up running plays. Of course, everybody knows also that number 7, Ruben Bain Jr. from Miami, another one. He's a monster as well. So, like I said, you got 3 top 10 edge rushers right there. And I mean, like I said, as much as teams need quarterbacks, they can also there's plenty just as much more they can always use a good edge, use an elite edge rusher. You see my Giants at number 5. Um, Looking at Sonny Styles from Ohio State, another great linebacker. Yeah, Ohio State had a great defense. Yeah, another top linebacker on a defense that is pretty much dead last in the NFL, one of the worst defenses in the NFL, which is my Giants. Yeah, we can definitely use another edge, another linebacker, somebody like that, somebody because we need Abdul Carter to bounce back, bounce back from last season. We need more from last. We need more than that last season gave us. We need, you know, we need our whole line back. As far as I think Thibodeau's going on his way out. Um, David Burns is probably the only one that really gave us something last year. So yeah, we could definitely need something on that defensive side. We was also projected to get Caleb Downs, who's on this mock draft is projected to go number 10 to the Bengals. Elite safety. I believe they noticed some red flags regarding his knee issues, but there's been a couple of players noted for degenerative knee issues and turned out to have good careers, but it's noted as a red flag. See Kansas City looking to address their offensive line. Francis Malgoa from Miami. Oh, did the Giants lose Lawrence? Oh no, we still got Dexter Lawrence. Yeah, Giants still got big Dexter Lawrence. He had an injury plagued season last year. He was kind of banged up. Normally he gives us like double digit sacks, and he didn't. Um, he didn't perform well because of the injuries. Um, David Burns, like I said, Burns was pretty good for us. Um, but Thibodeau and Abdul Carter, yeah, we definitely needed more from them last year. Defense was pretty terrible. You got the Saints looking at what's projected to be the best corner in the draft. Mansour Delane from LSU. The LSU factory produces another corner, so he's projected to go number 8. The receiver crop, Carnell Tate, projected to go number 6 from Ohio State to Cleveland. New weapon to probably add to Jerry Judy or move on from Jerry Judy with. But yeah, Shador definitely needs a good weapon to get open for him. Carnell Tate out there should be a good pick for him. Wilson's stock has risen up. Number 3, Jeremiah Love. He was projected to go number 9 to Kansas City, but his stock rose even higher. Now a lot of people always question about taking a running back this high, but he's looked at as Jahmyr Gibbs of this draft. He's looked at as the Bijan of this draft. He's like a great pass catcher, great runner. You know, yeah, I see organized chaos out here. You repping your LSU. Yeah, Melso Delane is an elite corner. He's a great corner in college, and he looks like he's going to be an elite prospect in the NFL as well. But yeah, Jeremiah Love, definitely looking like a big play home run hitter running back. And Arizona moving on from Kyler Murray. It's definitely looking reasonable to go ahead and get a good running game because you're going to definitely need it with no real answer for quarterback play at this point. So yeah, it's definitely um, looking bleak as far as quarterback for Arizona. So yeah, you might as well get all the running game you can. um, you also look at it, like I said, Makai Lemon is not featured on it. Is not in this. Is projected in this top 10, but he's another one from USC. Big time receiver, great route runner. Makai Lemon is another one I can easily see getting into this top 10 as well. If a team decides to go receiver in the top 10, but he's a first round prospect as well. But yeah, the NFL looks like it's like I said, starting to gear up, starting to cook a little bit. I'll be back next week with more updates. We'll probably hear more news tomorrow. See what other quarterback is on the move, but how the carousel continues to spin. Any other signings or releasings or any of that nature. But yeah, we're gonna get ready to switch gears into the NBA. And before we do that, like I said, if you're subscribing for the first time, thank you. If you haven't, go ahead and click the subscribe button, share, like, comment, engage. Tell a friend to tell a friend. It's the Left Fresh Podcast. Like I said, we're going to switch gears into the NBA. Um, we're right here at this point where we're getting geared up into going into the end of the regular season. Seeing which team's going to make that late season run. Uh, see the standings looking exactly the same, almost. Everybody's pretty much in the same spot like last week, but had some pretty big games. Pistons still at the top. Celtics still at number two. Knicks at 40 wins. Those are three 40 win teams in the East. Cavaliers are one win away from theirs. Adding James Harden seems to make a good difference for them. Darius Garland was pretty much hurt most of the season, so James Harden definitely gives them a spark that they need to get into the playoffs. Has everybody questioning whether Cleveland can actually make one of those four teams that can make a run out of the East. Um, James Harden gets a lot of speculation, gets a lot of skepticism for his playoff shortcomings. Honestly, Donovan Mitchell also gets a lot of flack for their playoff shortcomings. So, Cleveland looking to overcome their playoff shortcomings together. Getting a lot out of Jared Allen and Evan Mobley as far as James Harden goes. He's a pick and roll lob. Getting him the ball real good with centers and everything. So yeah, Cleveland looks like they are starting to hit a new stride with James Harden being newly acquired. New York Knicks. Just when you're ready to write them off, they end up doing something. Getting beat by the Pistons, was getting beat by pretty much every team that any team with a 500 record was almost looking like they was putting a whooping to us. But Knicks finally got a hold of the San Antonio Spurs on a Sunday afternoon and put BTA to them. You know what I mean? It was straight BTA. And it was happy for me to see because I was like, wow, I was like, oh man, we got Wemby and the Spurs. They young and tough and everything, but the Knicks actually came out with some new energy. Bridges came. I mean, not Miles Bridges, Mikal Bridges showed up. Jalen showed up. Cat was not really scoring much, but he was big on the boards. Kind of got a little in the mix a little bit. The Knicks was a lot better defensively, so to get a surprise win over the Spurs really impressed me. But that's kind of where it is right now. Those are pretty much your top four teams. The Celtics, a lot of heads are skeptical of the Celtics without Jason Tatum. I think they're pretty formidable team. I don't know what's the ceiling for them. Pistons, you know, we look at all four of these teams. They're flawed. You know what I mean? Each team has a flaw in them, so it's like each team kind of has as good a chance as the other. This is what parity is. It's like, yeah, you see the teams in the standings over each other, but really they're not that far apart from each other. The Pistons and the Celtics and the Knicks and the Cavaliers, a 7 game series, honestly, realistically, can really almost go either way. It's really all about matchups. I think some matchups work out better than others. Like I said, the Knicks can seem to step it up. Sometimes they look like pretenders, and sometimes it's like, oh, wait a minute, they can fool somebody here. So, like I said, it's really that wide open, especially in the East. Like I said, even in the lower seeded teams, you got the Raptors and the Sixers. Um, I'm not sure if their first round exits, can they get the right matchup and make a run? Can the Raptors upset Cleveland in the first round? I'm not sure about that, but they're a young team, wings that can cause a lot of matchup problems as well. But I mean, Evan Mobley's an elite defensive player, so I think Cleveland could probably win a playoff series this year. And how far they go after that remains to be seen. Um, Look at Orlando. This is a team that's kind of finished middle of the pack every single season. Matter of fact, there's about 3 teams that finished middle of the pack. We look at seeds 7 through 10. Other than the Hornets, who are like 500 now, and they're in a playing status, they've just gotten better and better. They just turned it around with their young team. I mean, Con Kneppel, Brandon Miller, LaMelo Ball. I mean, they've added some explosion to their offense, and they're giving teams problems. I mean, since the All Star break, they're one of the hottest teams in the league. Yeah, so shout out to the Hornets. I mean, building through the draft is paying off for them right now. Um, Hawks, Heat. Hawks, Heat, and Magic. These are teams that stay in the middle of the pack for like the past 3, 4 years. And in a league that's cracking down on tanking, I mean, you kind of appreciate the effort, but you gotta see why tanking happens. Yeah, what up, James? Yeah, man. Listen, Orlando is going to get bounced in the playing game. Yeah, I think Paolo Banchero has kind of hit the ceiling or leveled off or regressed. I'm not sure what to call it, but um, he's not really finishing at the rim. Match his game. His game is usually a more physical, athletic game, but this season is kind of struggling around the rim. I'm not sure if him and Franz are looking like a great duo. I mean, Desmond Bain, they traded like four draft picks for four first rounders for Desmond Bain, and he's not really making much of a difference for them. So, tough spot for Orlando. Just like I said, just middle of the pack. And I mean, eventually cap space is going to be an issue. Um, Now you look at the Hawks, another team that's finished middle of the pack season after season after season. However, there's a little more optimism for the Atlanta Hawks. Like I said, they're holding New Orleans Pelicans pick, which is probably the best of a pick swap between them and Milwaukee, who's right behind them. Um, Hawks got a chance to get a potential elite NBA player in this loaded draft class. So honestly, the Hawks can really just ride the wave at this point. You know what I mean? Jonathan Kuminga was a good addition. He started to look like he's fitting pretty good with Jalen Johnson and Reese Shea and that core out there in Atlanta. But I think the Hawks are more or less like a young core getting ready to rebuild. Yeah, Hawks on the come up. Yeah, like I said, that draft pick is like a golden ticket with this draft class that's coming up. So, and then adding it with Jalen Johnson, because the best part about adding this player, if they hit on this draft pick, it's a young potential star added to a star, and they're both on rookie salaries. In this NBA, where it's hard to put a team together with all these financial restrictions, you get young talent, young stars. I mean, you get a potential OKC. I mean, look at Charlotte. Like I said, LaMelo finally got some young players around him. Brandon Miller's look like he's turning that corner. Con Kneppel comes out the gate, already providing that floor spacing they need. I mean, Charlotte looks like a team on the come up as well because they're hitting on these draft picks. And, Atlanta, they're about one hit on a draft pick away from actually making some noise in the East as well. I mean, look at Philadelphia. Philadelphia looked dead in the water last year with Embiid and Paul George with max salaries and everything. Tyrese Maxey was pretty much on his own. You had a BJ Edgecombe, and all of a sudden, they're over 500. I don't know if they're a serious contender, but imagine what going younger and hitting on a draft pick would do. So yeah, BJ Edgecombe is definitely making a difference for Philadelphia. I mean, and then you look at the Bucks. Giannis made his return to the lineup, and you're kind of wondering if they're going to try to fight for a playoff spot. I mean, it's kind of like you want to tread softly with Giannis because whether you keep him or not, coming back from a calf strain, you don't want him to overexert himself with this Bucks team, who is they got Cam Thomas in the trade. He's a bucket, but um, I'm not sure if they're going to make enough noise in the East to to climb back in the East. Yeah, Charlotte's like a young Golden State Warriors. They got three of the top five 3-point shooters in the league. Exactly. Yeah, Brandon Miller's hitting threes. LaMelo's hitting threes. Con Kneppel's hitting threes. People hate analytics, but when the analytics work, it works. The three ball is when it's going in, that's when analytics is upheld. Um, yeah, Con Kneppel was a big addition as well. He's a sharpshooter with extensive range. Of course, with LaMelo in his range. Then you had Brandon Miller, who's already potential elite scorer as well, and LaMelo's a great passer. Um, I think LaMelo doing less is equaling to Charlotte playing winning ball. The less usage he has, getting the ball out to shooters and scorers and everything of that nature. They got some blue collar guys they can work under the rim. Yeah, Charlotte, prime example of what building through the draft would do. Keeping older players and veteran players and stars and everything with contracts tying them down. That's kind of like the old. It's kind of like the old way. A lot of especially with these last couple draft classes. I mean, this last year's draft class and this year's draft class is going to have a lot of teams looking a lot younger. Um, yeah, you see the teams at the bottom, the Bulls, all those guards. The Wizards are pretty much hauling it in. The Nets and the Pacers and everything. Those are the teams in the running for you know young draft picks. In a very loaded draft. So I mean, that's pretty much the East. Like I said, at the top, you see the top four, not too far away from each other, pretty flawed. Um, Move over to the West, and you see over here out west, got the Thunder still holding on strong. Spurs, like I said, came off an ugly loss from the Knicks, but rebounded last night. I'm not sure if you saw that game against the Sixers, but the Spurs, BTA, they were up by 50 points at one point. Yeah, it was pretty bad. It was up, they were literally up by almost about 50 points at one point in the game. It was an ugly one. In Philadelphia too. So yeah, they were really in a bad mood after the Knicks beat them on Sunday afternoon. Really rebounded and just really showed up. Um, it's kind of like, you question the Spurs because this will be really their first playoff as this core, and you're wondering how far can they go. But they play defense, and you know, if their perimeter shooting is on, yeah, they can definitely run away with a series. That's pretty much the key is how consistent are their perimeter shooters in San Antonio. The Thunder, their chances are still pretty good with their team they have. Oh, what team can still win with their franchise player not averaging 18 plus? Yeah. It's all about the depth. I mean, it depends if you can get about 5 or 6 players in double figures. It's kind of hard to stop a team where everybody's kind of producing. We've seen that with Indiana last year, but you still kind of have to have that closer like a Tyrese Halliburton, a clutch shooter, somebody who can create their own shot. Especially in playoffs when the game slow down and you got to get a bucket. The game gets a little more physical. You got to get somebody. You got to have somebody who can go out there and score you one, a closer. But yeah, um, Spurs and Thunder look like as far as standing go, they look like they're a class above the rest of the West. The West looks the West is still deeper than the East, but a lot of these teams aren't too far away from each other as well. Like I said, the Thunder, we're just only skeptical of them because of SGA's injury this season. Jalen Williams hasn't really been healthy this season, and the fact that nobody's repeated in this decade yet. So that's kind of the skepticism with the Thunder. The Spurs is kind of a skepticism regarding their age and their youth. Um, the Rockets, skepticism with them is the point guard play. The Timberwolves have jumped into the fifth spot. Anthony Edwards is playing incredible ball right now. He's playing, lighting it up. He had 41 the other night. He's working on becoming that closer. Question is, can he play hero ball through a whole playoff run, which has kind of led to the skepticism because we've seen over the past couple seasons that he's gotten pretty far, but he kind of runs into a blender of some other team, whether it's the Thunder or whether it's the Mavericks. Um, Playing with Rudy Gobert is still a great rim protector, a great defender, but he's starting to get into that age where he's starting to get a little bit older. I think that core around Ant Man is starting to get older, which is kind of closing his window around him. I think the Timberwolves are one of those teams that have to get younger. Julius Randle, I think his deal is expiring. We kind of seen the ceiling with him as far as playoff performances. We've seen enough of a sample with him. Is he enough to be the second guy to Ant? Can Jaden McDaniels or Nas Reed, can any of those core guys step up and be a reliable second guy to Ant to take some of that pressure off of him? Because, come playoff time, everybody knows Ant going to be the guy. Um, where's his Jalen Williams? Where's his Jamal Murray? You see the Nuggets have their guys. Even with Houston lacks point guard play, but they still got Kevin Durant and Alperen Sengun, Ahmed Thompson. You know, Timberwolves are in the mix, but they don't really have. I don't know how much they have to get over the top to really make it out of the West. And I think that core around Ant is kind of eroding because like Ant came into a veteran team kind of. They traded for Rudy Gobert, make a win now move, put him with Towns. They got Mike Conley out there at that time. You bring in Ant, who was ascending pretty fast, but that Minnesota core around him is kind of getting older too. So, it's kind of like, are we getting close to a rebuild around Ant? Are we going to be able to have to move Rudy Gobert, uh, move Julius Randle, and what can they do to get better around Ant? Because you know, getting out of the West, I don't really see as great as Ant is. I don't see one man hero ball getting them out of the West. See Nikola Jokic. Jokic is leading the league in rebounds and assists, which is crazy. But as crazy as it is, he getting closer and closer to not being eligible to even win MVP. Um, you know, that's the even crazier part. But I mean, I think there's a big discussion about the minimum requirement of games played to win the award. But yeah, Jokic is astronomical as the stats were. Injuries over the season might actually keep him out of eligibility for the MVP. I think he's a couple, maybe a game away. Even I mean, he's yeah, but not looking good as far as chances of making it through to meet that requirement. And the team that everybody loves to talk about, the LA Lakers. Uh, Middle of the pack. A lot of talk around DeAndre Ayton. Uh, he was in the media for saying they're trying to make him into a Clint Capella, and he's not no Clint Capella. Well, a lot of firing back from around the NBA community. Charles Barkley had choice words. Yeah, there was a lot of discourse around. You know, a lot of people just fired back with Aiden has a lot of nerve. It's like, first of all, I don't think DeAndre Ayton's in. I don't think anybody thinks DeAndre Ayton is in any position to say what he is and what he isn't at this point. I mean, this is his third team, and he's been drafted, and he's been drafted since 2018. He's been drafted since 2018, and he's in what year 6, year 7, and he's already on team number 3. And you're playing with Luca, LeBron, and Austin Reeves. You're not even the third option on this team. I don't think you're in a position to say feed me the ball. And I mean, yeah, the least you could do is catch lobs. And yeah, Clint Capella has actually put up you know respectable numbers, and people respect Clint Capella's effort and the way he approaches the game. Which is something that many can't say for DeAndre Ayton. You know, you can actually look online and see like watch the games and see the visible frustration of Lakers staff with DeAndre Ayton as he, you know, sometimes takes defensive plays off or not enough effort under the rim, especially on defense. I think one of the reasons the Lakers, well, Lakers needed a rim protector bad last season. After last season, and the way they lost in the playoffs, the Lakers needed to address the big man position. They definitely needed a rim protector. I think that was the most important of anything else. They lost that rim protection with Anthony Davis. They needed that rim protection back more than anything. Even more so, I think, than the rebounds, because DeAndre Ayton on a good night can get you a double double, and it still wouldn't be enough because you need defense. You got players on the wings who don't. You got guards and wings who don't play well on the wings and play defense well on the wings and get targeted, and then you got DeAndre Ayton at the rim. Is like, yeah, it's pretty much a free run. You know what I mean? So it's like, it, the thing is like, and it's kind of the same thing that's traveled with DeAndre Ayton from Phoenix to Portland. I mean, think about it. Portland was his own team. Like, he was on a young team that was rebuilding, and they had the cap space to absorb his contract, and they walked away from him. You know, as hard as it is to find a big, I mean, they drafted a big, and they got a good one too, Donovan Clingan. I mean, he's one of the top rebounders in the NBA, and Portland is another upstart team. Shaden Sharp, Denny Avija, Donovan Clingan. Um, Drew Holiday's there. Damian Lillard's out with the Achilles tear, but you know, they got two veteran point guards with a very young team that's building up. I mean, Portland's another team that, like I said, they didn't work their way up from the bottom after moving on from Damian Lillard before getting him back, and worked their way into the middle of the pack. This is a young team, and they got better since they moved on from DeAndre Ayton. So, I mean, it's going to be tough. I don't see him being back with the Lakers next season, um, which leads to another very important player that we're kind of unsure will be back in LA next season. Legendary LeBron James. Um, Not sure if he does return. Period. Not sure if he returns to the Lakers. Not sure if he returns somewhere else. Um, you know, Very good at you know leaving us in the dark, wondering, guessing, discussing all these media platforms and talk shows and everything, discussing what's he going to do, what's in his best interest. Yeah, some coming out saying he should retire. Um, I don't think LeBron's play will ever just diminish to the point where he just has to retire. He can't even make his way back on the NBA court. But I also do think that 23 years in the NBA is a pretty long time, and you know, at this point, it's just a matter of whether he just wants to do it mentally. I don't think it'll ever be a case of physically. I think physically he can. There's a team that will play him at 45. I mean, honestly, even if his game declines, it's a matter of how much it will decline to not make an NBA roster. But I think walking away from the game is something that LeBron would do on his own terms. Uh, a lot of people speculating about Cleveland. I know that's who got drafted. I know that's who we got drafted by. I know that's who we brought a ring to. I know that's where figuratively home is. But at the same time, I don't know if he will. I don't know if Cleveland and Dan Gilbert and Cleveland Cavaliers is exactly a farewell tour type of thing with LeBron. You know what I mean? Like, if there's a farewell tour, might as well do it in LA. I don't know if Dan Gilbert wants to even give him one. I don't think people really think about that. Like, what's his relationship with Cleveland Cavaliers organization after leaving twice? Is it is there even a farewell tour type of relationship with the organization? But that's a question more so than an answer. I don't really have the answer to that, but I mean, I'm just kind of like listening to the discourse about the idea of him returning to Cleveland. It's an interesting concept. I mean, of course, I'm always interested in him in him going back, but yeah, I mean, Cleveland, that's an interesting scenario as well. Yeah, they don't love him in LA, and like I said, I don't know if LeBron necessarily even needs a farewell tour. I don't even know if he's really a farewell tour type of player. He's really a type of beat to his own drum, goes to the beat of his own drum. He could very well just announce, "Yeah, I'm done after this season." But that's kind of like I feel like that's more of a mental thing more than anything else. Is he really tired? Is he really done? The interviews he gives kind of says it, but at the same time, I know he enjoys being on the court. I know he enjoys the rush being in the game, talking to the younger players and everything like that too. Just, I don't know if he's probably just still toiling over it himself. I mean, so it's like not my place to really speculate on whether he is or he isn't. But it is an interesting topic. I mean, it is at that point. I mean, 23 years is a long run. I mean, that's as long as I've been out of high school. So I mean, yeah, he's been going that long. But yeah, NBA, like I said, getting pretty interesting. Like I said, a lot of teams are getting geared up and trying to secure their seeding for the playoffs. But then you got NBA teams that are just going through the motion. The unpopular word these days is tanking. Uh, and a lot of people are saying, "Oh, is that there? I won't guarantee him a ring in 1 year going to Cleveland." Yeah, I mean, like it's a tough thing with Cleveland because of the cap situation they got. I mean, Harden. We don't know if Harden's going to sign an extension there. If he isn't, we don't know if that's going to just keep Donovan and go move on from Harden. We don't know which combination of players are going to keep. We know Evan Mobley is most likely not going anywhere. He's the youngest star out of them. But yeah, and that's what I think it is. It's like if he comes back, it's probably going to be the farewell tour. It's probably going to be the final season. You know what I mean? Like if he doesn't retire this year, I don't see him playing another year after next. I think that's kind of either this year or next year is it. I mean, and I'm only just gauging off the interviews and vibe and everything like that. I mean, me personally, I know I'd be done, but I can't speak for him. LeBron still, you know, I know he still loves basketball, and I mean that's kind of the decision. Like I said, he will have to make that mentally. But yeah, like I said, the rest of a lot of teams at the bottom of the standings in the NBA trying to get in position for a loaded draft class, and before some of these players get ready to make that jump to the NBA, like a projected 9 out of the 10 first top 10 picks are freshmen. Um, but here comes a big tournament coming up. The regular season for the NCAA is winding down. Um, Getting to the big tournament, got the teams at the top of the polls. You got Duke right there being led by freshman Cameron Boozer. You got Arizona the second at number 2. You got Michigan and UConn at number 3. Oh, those top 4 teams look in position to get the top seed in the big tournament. My UConn Huskies look like they started to rally back. I've never questioned Coach Hurley. What I'm saying? We hoping we get us another one. See Florida at number 5, looking like they're ready to be a menace again after their run last year. Iowa State at number 6. Real tough Iowa State team, real tough inside. University of Houston as well, number 7. Michigan State, Tom Izzo still got his team playing at a high level. Nebraska, a lot of teams are question a lot of people question how deep of a run can they make, but they're looking good right now. Texas Tech, um, also playing well. Illinois, Keaton Wagler. I mean, yeah, freshman on that team lighting it up. Keaton Wagler, Gonzaga. You got University of Virginia, and then of course right there, number 14, you got Kentucky. Kentucky took a tough loss. Bill Self got ejected the other night. Darren Peterson played the whole game though. Darren Peterson still has a chance to get himself up there back into the position as a number 1 pick. There's a couple injury concerns and everything like that. He's had cramping, a couple of issues, but you know, I think he can get some workouts with some teams come, getting ready towards the draft. I think he can kind of make those injury concerns go away, especially if he's able to finish the rest of the season at a relatively healthy pace. But also kind of want him to, people say low manage him and everything, but it's like, hey, listen, you know, don't run this kid into the ground if he's got real legitimate injuries. I think everyone's don't know if he's really hurt or not like that. I mean, this kid seems like he wants to play, and if he wants to play, sometimes you gotta take the precautions with somebody who's really wanting to play. Yeah, AJ DeBansa, um, he looks like the number 1 pick because of durability and athleticism, 6'9", the wingspan. Yeah, I agree, Jimmy. He, Darren Peterson's highly skilled, but he's just a little bit smaller than Darren Peterson. I mean, than AJ DeBansa. AJ DeBansa got the size, got the scoring touch. Like I said, you got the wingspan. In today's NBA, I think NBA teams want that size and they want the wingspan. And, they kind of leaning towards those versatile wings that can kind of see the floor and score baskets and defend on the other end. Those kind of all around small forwards is kind of like in high demand. So, yeah, depending on what team wins that draft lottery, I can easily see, the Bancer being a heavy consideration to be the number 1 pick. Like I said, Darren Peterson can will himself back in there if he can stay healthier through the rest of this stretch. But even then, I think the red flags are already still there. But yeah, it's definitely between him and DeBansa. Um, as you get to the bottom half of the top 25 AP standards in college men's basketball, you got Purdue, you got Alabama, North Carolina. Caleb Wilson's another top 10 pick. I mean, I seen him go as low as number 8 and high as number 4. Another athlete, pretty slim. Um, a lot of far reach, high ceiling comparisons for Caleb Wilson to Kevin Garnett. Really high motor, very, very, get real spicy on the court. You know what I mean? He's really athletic, got good vertical leap ability. Yes. He's another high energy player. He had a big win against Duke. Showed out in that game. Got St. John's up there, number 18. Rick Pitino's got them back on the map. Miami of Ohio is undefeated. Um, University of Arkansas. Darius Acuff is kind of the ideal point guard. Now, Kingston Flemings, I'm big on Kingston Flemings as well. I think 3 good point guards in this top 10 draft. I'm gonna show you the mock draft in just a second. Yeah, SMC, University of Miami, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, St. Louis University. That's the bottom half. Um, yeah, but watch out for Arkansas. Darius Acuff, he can have some big. I think I can see him having some big games in the big tournament. He's a gamer, even as a freshman. You got UNC, like I said, they can be a tough matchup for some teams. Tennessee, Ament, another long, rangy guard that can put the bucket on, get the ball in the bucket, put it on the floor. Yeah, yeah, yeah. These are, like I said, a lot of parity as well in college too. I don't think there's too many teams above the other in this one, thanks to NIL. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and before I get out of here, I'm gonna show you all the mock drafts for the NBA, like show you the early one and kind of show you the newer one with not much changes to it. But yeah, this was from Draft Express. You got Darren Peterson projected to go number 1. AJ DeBanza, I think can go back and forth. Like I said, this is the very early draft projections. So this one, Mikel Brown there and everything of that nature. Nate Ament from Tennessee, but as you go into this one is a more recent from the Athletic. You got AJ Debance at number one, Darren Peterson at number two, Carlos Boozer at number three, Caleb Wilson at number four. Consistently, that's probably the most accurate top four order that you can have right there. I mean, regardless of the order, I mean, the top four players in this draft are probably going to be Debance, Peterson, Cameron Boozer, and Caleb Wilson. Um, then you got, but then you also got the guards to consider. Like I said, you got Kingston Flemings, you got Darius Acuff, you got Mikael Brown Jr. Three good point guards to go with on this one. You got Keaton Wagler from Illinois. You know, like I said, you got Native Mint from Tennessee. You know, nine of those picks are all fresh. The top nine picks are all freshmen. I mean, this was a loaded freshman class. Um, this season, they've had several have 40-point games, which is crazy. Um, like I said, and then you got Cole Pete from Arizona projected to go number 11. So yeah, and then Jaden Quaintance. I'm sorry, Jaden Quaintance. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, this draft class. I mean, it can even have some steals later on in the draft. I mean, especially when it comes to the tournament time. Yeah, you'd be surprised which one of these players steps up, proves their draft stock. Um, Usually happens every single year, and I'm excited for March. Like I said, it's a great month. Start seeing this regular seasons wind down in basketball. Start seeing some games get real intense and real competitive. You know, hey, what up, low eyes? Yeah, yeah, what up, man? Yeah, this might be the best freshman class ever. I'm gonna put that back up there for you, man. Yeah, yeah. This freshman class is crazy. I mean, you gotta go back to like, the Kenny Anderson days or those type of days to find a freshman class crazier than this, man. I mean, every weekend you watching college basketball, especially as the season starts to heat up, these younger players are just taking it up another notch every year. And you know what's crazy? How all of the flack about NIL allowing older players that was in the G League or almost signed to an NBA contract or played overseas gets to come back to college and they come back as 25, 26-year-old grown men and everything like that. And everybody's like, oh man, these grown men get to go back to college and short these other kids. Listen, some of these 19-year-olds don't care. Like they getting ready to play against NBA players anyway. Like, yeah, you come on back out here and get this work, man. You know what I'm saying? These 19-year-olds is not playing. I mean, these 18 to 19-year-old kids, they coming in 1 year putting up 40-point games, and anybody can come back to college and get this work. I mean, this is a loaded draft class. Like I said, for them to all be freshmen, yeah, that's kind of definitely unprecedented, though. One of the more unprecedented draft classes, projected draft classes, of course. But there was also speculation about whether AJ DeBase is even going to leave after this year. It was actually talk about him actually staying another season, but I think his draft stock is too high, and I think eventually he'll see the light and say, "Listen, it's time to go. It's definitely time to go." Like, there's nothing else you can do at this level. I mean, if you get to the NBA where the spacing is even wider and everything, he's going to be he has potential to be a lethal scorer on the NBA level. But yeah, that's my time for the night. All. Um, I appreciate you all for jumping on. Like I said, if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you all to click subscribe, click like, comment, jump in the comments, go on the page and everything, check the previous recordings and everything like that, see what else I said, anything else we might have talked about. I said I'll be back on Saturday to do the hip hop special. Um, Got the first episode in March. Like I said, I got some anniversary albums that turn 30, albums that turn 20, maybe 10 years old coming up in March. Like I said, some big years over those past couple years, and see if any other new releases, anything else in hip hop discussion to talk about. I'll be back on Saturday at 9 p.m. I'll send out the postings for those. But for tonight, I appreciate you all for tuning in. You all have a great night. Let's get through the rest of this week, all. It's the Left Fresh Podcast signing out. You all have a great night. Thanks.